really think about what is it that is important to you about money. Most folks don't want money just for the sake of money. They want it because they want to provide a life for themselves or their families. They want to give their children opportunities that they didn't have. They want to feel free or independent. And when we think about those things, we try to frame the decisions we're making with money around those. So if we are spending money in any capacity, whether it's reasonable things or unreasonable things, is this in line with the things that you're telling me are most important to you about money? And if they're not, then we need to shift it.
Women need to empower women, and our voice matters.
Bitch.
Welcome to the Mom Bitch Podcast.
This episode of the Mom Bitch Podcast is brought to you by btrnation.com. Oh, hey, busy mama. Do you need a snack that is not just healthy, but also delicious? Check out BTR Nation. With low sugar, low carb, high protein, high fiber, and low sodium, BTR Nation snacks are perfect for keeping you fueled and feeling fantastic throughout the day. Whether you're tackling your to-do list or you're enjoying a rare moment of peace, these snacks have you covered. Plus, for a limited time, you can use code MOMBATCH to get 20% off and free shipping. So do not wait. Visit btrnation.com. They even have a snack quiz so you can help discover your favorite healthy treats.
Ricky, welcome to the Mom Bitch Podcast.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So Ricky is a financial advisor. Full disclosure, he is my financial advisor. On the Mom Bitch Podcast, we only promote things that we believe in, things that have a positive impact, and Ricky's definitely one of those in our lives. So we're here to give the 411 because a lot of people don't know what a financial advisor is, what they do. They have preconceived notions, and we're here kind of to debacle all of those things. So we're going to turn it over to Ricky, and he's going to kind of introduce us into what exactly a financial advisor is, what they do, and his 411.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it's confusing. I think what does a financial planner do is, you have an image of a guy at a computer with charts and graphs and, boring jargon talk. But there's kind of a shift of that. And I think financial advisors, the good ones, recognize that we've earned the distrust that the general public has of financial advisors. There's lots of financial advisors out there that are looking out for themselves more than they are for their clients. And we're trying to dispel that. And, for me personally, I think what a financial planner does is help you clarify your goals and what you want your life to look like, and then helps you determine how do you use your resources to support that. And, I joke that I can help with anything with a dollar sign next to it. So you might be thinking, oh, they're just going to take my money and invest it, and somehow I'll have more money at the end of it. But it's a lot more comprehensive than that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've walked us through so many things in our lives. I mean, it's not just a financial, it's estate planning. He helps us pick our benefits. It's a grueling task, but he stays on the phone for 30 minutes, and we'll go through every option and what is better for you financially and your family.
Isn't the part of the point of having like a financial advisor so that you have a stable future, right? Like you hire someone to help you make short-term, mid-term, long-term decisions. And if your end goal is, for example, retire, wink, wink, at 65, Ricky? I know people aren't doing that anymore. But do you think that everyone should have a financial advisor?
I think most people, pretty much everyone, needs a financial advisor. And even the people that feel very confident in what they're doing financially, because we talk a lot about the math and we use that to help us make decisions, but there's a ton of emotion involved in it. And it's really hard to know and see your own blind spots of just having someone to bounce ideas off of, or, hey, I'm thinking about this. How does this impact everything else? Or, what am I missing in this equation? I think is really powerful, and it just removes a lot of stress from the conversation. Just having someone in your corner helping you make decisions that are in line with the things that are most important to you.
How do you pay for a financial advisor? So I'm just going to throw a hypothetical out. I'm going to throw like a challenging queen mom scenario. Okay. I am a single mom and I am working a couple part-time jobs to make ends meet. I do not get healthcare through my workforce and I am living paycheck to paycheck. How do I afford you?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So this is a huge debate in financial planning world right now. So the traditional way is in that scenario, you would go to a financial advisor, and then early on, the conversation would shift to, well, how much money do you have to invest? Because a lot of financial advisors get paid based on how much money they manage. So traditionally, kind of a standard accepted amount is 1%. So if you don't have a lot of money to invest, this advisor's not making a lot of money, they're not that interested in helping, if we're being completely honest. They may help you kind of get set up if they're willing to spend some time, but they're not going to make a lot of money. They're going to focus on, that's why so many financial advisors focus on retirees, pre-retirees, and the folks that are kind of prepared to retire because they've got a lot of assets for them to potentially manage. Alternatively, there may be insurance salespeople who call themselves financial advisors that will talk you into buying a life insurance policy that you don't need, and they make a big commission off of it, and they're paid via commission, and it's almost kind of a one-time relationship because they get paid up front. Or there's this growing community of advisors who are paid in a retainer model, a monthly subscription model. That's how I'm paid at Abundo Wealth, where I work now. We charge a little bit more upfront for the first month, but then it's $189 a month. It's very, very affordable. And then we work through all of those things. It removes a lot of the conflicts of interest. We give advice. You pay us a flat fee to give you good financial advice, and that's what we do. We're not incentivized to say, give us your money, because we're not making more or less money depending on what decisions you make. We get paid the same regardless. And all clients are paying us the same. So all clients are our top clients and our most important clients. It does become a little bit of a challenge, especially when cash flow is the issue. And there are coaches that help with that, but also something that financial advisors like myself help with. So one of the first things we focus on is let's get an idea of where the money's going. Is it in line with what's important to us? Are there areas that we can cut? What does that look like? How do we build a cash flow and spending plan that is sustainable? And it is tough. That's not always the case. And if it is, dire straits, there are folks that do some pro bono work. We're seeing more and more pro bono work done out there, where there might be some opportunities for free financial advice. It may be a little bit limited, but at least to get you pointed in the right direction.
So I know, Ricky, you're kind of like a new aged financial advisor in your firm. Can you kind of talk about what you guys are doing differently to change the stigma?
Yeah, I think what we're focusing on is helping people first and making it affordable and accessible. We've seen, because of the different ways financial advisors are paid, that they're incentivized to not help the not wealthy people. If you focus on being paid on how much money I manage, then I want to talk to people who have lots of money. That just from a business standpoint makes a lot of sense. So they're incentivized to not help folks that are just getting started out or who maybe need a lot of help. And that was the area that I saw. I wanted to work with millennials, and I felt like millennials were raising their hands saying, hey, I want help with this. But because they're just getting started out, they might not have a lot of investments to manage. And to a traditional advisor, someone opening a Roth IRA with a couple $1,000s is not nearly as attractive as someone about to retire with $1 million. But I think we can have a huge impact on that first person, and we can help create some really good habits. We can set them up for long-term success. So I think we're just looking at it differently. I think we're looking further down the road. We're looking past the paycheck and saying, how can we have an impact? What kind of impact do we want to have on the world, and how do we want to help people? And this is an area that we can have a ton of impact for us. It's really, really interesting stuff. We get to do really interesting work and have a huge impact on folks. And we focus on that first. And we're just a lot less greedy. We need to make a living, and we want to make a living for sure. But we're focused on helping people first.
So like the boomer generation, right? Like they had pensions. They have, I feel like, a little bit more that was available. And I'm not a finance guru. Okay. I just know that the boomers have assets. They have the money. They can buy the houses. They're retiring. Good for them. Millennials and Gen Zs, we're screwed. We can't afford anything. I just read that you have to make $96,000 a year in order to live comfortably for an individual person. So when you say like you really want to go after the millennials, is it because you are saying that a lot of these finance companies are just focused on the quick fix and they're not thinking about the clients that will grow with them? Because I'm a millennial and in 10 years from now, I could be a millionaire, right? So like you're building relationships with your peers as opposed to just going for the elders.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think the entire financial planning philosophy is built on this idea that if you can make small changes and do it for a long period of time, we can have huge results. So in the financial planning world, we'll say contribute a little bit of your money to your 401k. Even if it's a little bit, over 30, 40 years, it's going to be a substantial amount of money. So the fact that we ignore millennials because they don't have a lot of money just feels completely contradictory. The idea is if I can help this person when they're in their 20s or 30s or even their early 40s, we can have a huge impact. It's going to take a long time before we really reap the rewards of that. But I think that, like, why are we not doing that from a business planning standpoint if it's what we preach all day long of what you should be doing with your finances? So, yeah, I think, and my thought is from, if we're being selfish from that standpoint is if I help someone when they're 25 or 30 years old, when they didn't have assets to invest, they're going to stay with me forever because they're going to turn into that big client.
Right.
And when all the other firms are calling, they're saying, you wouldn't return my calls. And Rick's been helping me for a decade. Like, why would I switch now?
Exactly.
And those are the relationships I want from my standpoint is I want to have lifelong relationships with my clients. I want to know them intimately. And, we do that. I'm the first to find out about job changes or moves or pregnancies or, all of these things. I'm on that short list of people that find out, before it's on social media or whatever. And that's really, really cool to be a part of people's lives that way. But yeah, you're 100% right. Companies used to reward you for being loyal. My grandfather worked the same job, same company for 30 years. And said, great, here's a pension. Enjoy the rest of your life. And what happened is
they're enjoying the rest of their life, Ricky. They're enjoying the rest of their life.
We're screwed.
Companies said, that's way too expensive. We can't afford to keep doing this. So we'll switch to the 401k plan, which is the common retirement plan now. And then in that transition, we said, well, we're also not going to teach you anything about finances. We're going to switch the burden from us to you. Good luck.
See you later.
Yeah, we hope you figure it out. And that transition has been a rocky one, to say the least.
I have another question. We just met. Her name's Paula, and she owns the Academy of Divorce. And so what we found is finances are which I'm sure a lot of people know, right? But if you didn't, finances are a really big part of divorce. Where I'm going with this is, since you do work with our generation in particular, do you see a lot of couples when they come to you have like a full understanding of each other's finances? Like, do you have any advice for people that might be in a situation where they're in a relationship, they're engaged, they're about to be married, and they don't know what's happened financially with their partner, and like how you can come in and help? Because it happens quite often, I'm assuming.
Yeah, 100%. There's kind of this expectation of different roles, and there's kind of I think assumptions on both sides that like, oh, it's taken care of, and whether that's the case or not. One of the reasons I like working with young couples specifically, I've worked with a couple families that are just starting to either get married or they've just gotten married or they're a very young couple. And we can talk about all of the fun, for me, financial planning stuff that we do. But more than anything, we're creating a habit that's saying, hey, we're going to sit down regularly and we're going to talk about money. that alone just kind of creates this habit of, hey, we're told this is taboo. We're told we're not supposed to talk about it, but let's at least a couple times a year, 3-4 times a year, sit down. Let's take stock of where we're at. Let's make sure we're okay, and talk about money regularly. And it is unique because, a financial planner like me is generally pretty thorough. So sometimes things do come up that not everyone is aware of, whether it's debt or these accounts or the way these accounts are being managed, comes up. And, that's okay. But I think at the end of the day, we try to focus on, hey, what's the goal here? What are we trying to accomplish? And are these things in line with that? And how do we get them in line if they're not?
What are the gender stereotypes that are perpetuated between men and women in finance, in the finance area?
I think across the board, we can do a lot better at this. There's kind of this assumption that, the man takes care of the money, and financial advisors don't help that situation. I've worked at different firms where I see financial advisors, just talking directly to a man in this situation and ignoring the female in that situation. But the way I look at it is, what are we planning for? What are we saving for? And most couples I work with manage their finances together, or there's some kind of assumption that these finances are going to be together. And although we do hear from time to time from women say, I'm really not that interested in the specifics of the finances. I don't care about the tax strategy or whatever investments we have. Sure, you might not care about the specific financial planning stuff, maybe as much as some of the men do of the specifics, but you do care about what the goals are, right? You do care what your life looks like. And we want your opinion on that. Everything we're doing is the what and the how, not the why. The why is, what are your goals and your dreams? And that is a conversation you need to be a part of. You have to be a part of. And when we circle that back to things, more stereotypes when it comes to investing, the data supports that women are better investors than men. And ironically, we hear the stereotype over and over that women are too emotional. Men are the ones that tend to be overconfident in their abilities and make reckless decisions with their money, where, in my experience and what the data shows, that women seem to have a more stable, consistent strategy that they stick to, which I think is a lot of fun. But yeah, I think you need to be thinking about that. If a man is managing the money in your relationship and you don't know what's going on, is their overconfidence causing issues with your goals, right? Is this investment strategy really, really reckless? And we're not talking about money being lost. We're talking about, maybe this is going to cost us a couple of years of work. Maybe we got to work a little bit longer. Maybe we don't get those dream vacations in Italy because we're doing some kind of investment strategy that's too risky. Or, this is going to be harder on the kids because, we're investing in a way that is not in line with what's really important to us, just because we're maybe trying to make a little bit extra money.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's like a really important point. Have you ever worked with a client that didn't want to bring his wife into the picture?
It comes up from time to time. I would usually turn those folks away, unless they manage their finances completely separately. We do have couples like that where the finances are completely separate, and that's totally fine. Whatever works. But if they manage their money together, I don't quite feel comfortable. At the very least, they don't maybe need to be in every meeting, but at the very least, we need to be once a year talking about the big picture, what the goals are, what's important, and executing that. They don't necessarily need to be a part of that, as long as I think it's really, really important to know what's important to both folks rather than just taking someone's word for it. And I want to make sure they understand, and educating and empowering people, I think, is really important.
So when you become a financial advisor, do you have any sort of oath, talking about the ethics? Like you said, that you personally wouldn't feel comfortable, but that's not to say another financial advisor would. What should we expect from our financial advisor, in your opinion? With your education, what have you given oath to make sure that you are ethical? And what should people look out for if they're unsure? Because you had mentioned a little bit ago, like it could be an insurance company, it could be this person. And especially with all of the, information we consume nowadays, it's tough to know what's real and what's not.
Yeah. Social media has made my job a lot harder, for sure. And we're starting to see some changes around this. They're trying to start protecting certain terms of who can be called financial advisor, financial planner, things like that. But I think at the moment, pretty much anyone can call themselves a financial advisor. If you actually work as a financial advisor and give advice and make money off of investment suggestions and recommendations, then you are held to some standards and some regulations on compliance standpoint. But yeah, it's pretty loose. As a certified financial planner, CFP, that process does require me to sign a fiduciary oath, which is just a fancy word to say that I put your interest above mine. And you may think that that is a given and every financial advisor is putting their interest above mine. And it's not the case. There's different levels of what they call suitability, right? So some financial advisors, quote unquote financial advisors, can give a recommendation that is suitable, even though it's not in your best interest. There may be two options that are maybe equally good, and one is maybe a little more expensive, but pays the financial advisor a lot more money. They can suggest that, and there's really no ramifications for that. And what we find is most consumers have no idea of how these products work. They're in some ways intentionally confusing. And you just assume this person is looking out for me and they're helping me. That's what they told me they were going to do. They're helping me. But at the end of the day, you're getting put into something that doesn't make sense and costs a lot of money, but pays them really well. Where fiduciary, I think that's probably the most important question throughout this. One, you want to have a financial advisor that you trust and respects you and all of those things. But the question is, are you a fiduciary first and foremost? And that just means, are you going to put my interest above yours in every situation? Sometimes you'll get an answer from a financial advisor that says, well, sometimes I'm a fiduciary, sometimes I'm not. To me, not good enough, right? Like if that's the case, sometimes they'll literally have to give a disclosure that says, well, right now I'm not acting as a fiduciary. The answer needs to be yes. If it's not yes, then it's no, right.
Do you think that has to do with like the fees and like the structure of how advisors get paid? Like if you're not getting paid a commission based off of a sale, you're probably going to have your client's best interest more than potentially be like, oh, this could make me a little extra money.
Yeah. And I think that's the next question too, is how do you get paid? And, one, is that clear to you as a consumer? Because there are people who are fiduciaries, who are CFPs that do get paid in ways that I would think create lots of conflicts of interest. The idea is that conflicts of interest are okay as long as they're managed and understood. But when you're incentivized to do certain things, most people are going to do those things. And it becomes lots of financial advisors, I say are salespeople dressed as financial advisors, right? Even if they are reasonable financial advisors, when you're incentivized to do certain things, that, when everything's, when the solution's a hammer, everything's a nail. And that's what we see financial advisors do. And it creates a bad relationship. It makes it a lot harder for financial advisors to regain the trust of clients and consumers. And, it's really selfish to just make a decision so you can make a little bit more money or win a trip or something in a sales contest. It's kind of crazy.
Kind of on that point, like quick fixes, like there's a lot of quick fix stuff out there. Like, oh, I'm going to make money fast, right? What's your input on like the quick money schemes?
Usually if it's too good to be true, it is. We see it come up a lot where whatever's going on, something kind of exciting is going on, and you think it's an opportunity to make money quickly. We usually see people lose money in those situations. Our general philosophy is the slow, boring, methodical way is what has worked for a very, very long time and what we think will continue to work. I would say in those situations, think about what you could be losing And it's not just money, right? Like we talked about earlier. It's, hey, if this was invested in the slow, boring way, maybe this is going to help us get our retirement goal sooner, or that vacation home, or whatever it is, where, hey, it's only a little bit of money, I'm willing to lose it. You got to be comfortable with that, but also look long-term what the impact of taking those unnecessary risks are.
This episode of the Mom Betch podcast is brought to you by btrnation.com. Oh, hey there, Supermom. Are you looking for a snack that will fit your healthy lifestyle and allow you to keep up with your busy days? Well, say hello to BTR Nation. BTR Nation snacks are low sugar, low carb, high protein, high fiber, and low sodium. So it's literally everything that we need to stay energized and feel great. From protein packed bars to guilt-free truffle cups, these snacks are designed to support your active lifestyle and satisfy your cravings, which is why they are my favorite. But the best part is we get to use code MOMBETCH for 20% off and free shipping. So if you're ready to upgrade your snack game, visit btrnation.com, grab your favorite snacks, and fuel your mom's superpowers.
Where I'm going with this is, say you have a client with addiction, whether it be gambling, any type of addiction. How do you work with a client like that or a family like that to help them, right?
Yeah.
Or is that a tricky?
It is tricky. What we try to do is have clients really think about, what is it that is important to you about money? Most folks don't want money just for the sake of money. They want it because they want to provide a life for themselves or their families. They want to give their children opportunities that they didn't have. They want to feel free or independent. And when we think about those things, we try to frame the decisions we're making with money around those. So if we are spending money in any capacity, whether it's reasonable things or unreasonable things, is this in line with the things that you're telling me are most important to you about money? And if they're not, then we need to shift it. We've got a finite amount of money. I heard someone say before that, millennials can have anything they want, but they can't have everything that they want. So you've got to be really clear about what's important to me, why is money important to me, and then how do I align my spending, my savings, investing with those things.
So, speaking of spending and saving, for our listeners who have no idea where to start, have no experience with, financial goals, can you give a little pixie dust on kind of where to start?
A few areas to think. I think figuring out where your money is going is the most important. The word budget is like a bad word for folks, but think of it as a spending plan, a cash flow plan, if you want to sound fancy. But knowing where your money is going is most important. And especially if you're getting started and trying to figure this out, patience is really important. This takes a long time. And I think that's why a lot of folks give up. But I like to think financial planning is like this big puzzle, and cash flow planning is the biggest, heaviest piece, and it takes the longest to move into the right place, but it opens up tons of opportunities beyond that. So I would start with track your money. The first step is like stepping on the scale, right? If you're trying to get healthy, stepping on the scale, it's not a lot of fun. You don't really need to do anything, but you need to know what the scale says. Let's start there and see where we're at. And then when you do that, the natural next steps are like, oh, how many calories are in this bag of chips? Maybe I need to not eat as many of these. That just kind of happens naturally, and it creates some awareness, but don't judge, don't do anything. Just, where's my money going? How do I feel about that? And then just start there. Take your time. It's okay. There's lots of great budgeting tools that you can use. Monarch Money is a really popular one. Rocket Money. There's a few other out there. Every dollar you need a budget are really, really helpful. And I would start with just no judgment. Let's see where the money's going. And then I think naturally you're going to find some things. One, some stuff, oh, I forgot I was paying for this that I've been paying for a long time. Or oh, I spent way more money on this than I thought I did, and that's actually not that important to me. And then if you want, more specifically, the budget plan that I use is really simplified. I think simple is better. I just track 3 categories, and it's the fixed expenses, basically the lifestyle expenses, guilt-free spending, and savings goals. So there's 3 categories. So you want 50 to 60% of your take-home pay to go to fixed expenses at the most. If that's too high, try to scale that back. You want to save 10 to 20%. If you can save and invest 20% of your money, it's hard to lose in that situation, especially if you're starting early. And then whatever's left in the 20 to 30-ish% range is guilt-free spending. And I specifically like that phrasing, guilt-free spending, permission granted. Anything that's important to you, anything that brings you happiness, spend it. You can't be too restrictive. There are lots of financial advisor folks out there who, if you're in debt or you're getting started, it's like, don't have any fun, don't enjoy your life. And then maybe you'll get to go enjoy your life. I think it needs to be sustainable. And I think, permission granted to spend some money along your journey.
So the housing market is kind of out of hand. And it's kind of the time when millennials will be entering the housing market. What do new home buyers, of our generation need to consider? What percent of our income do we need to be spending towards, maximum towards our mortgage?
Yeah, it's a really good question. The general rule of thumb is 28% of your income. I like
gross.
Yeah. Yep. I like 25%, just to give you a little extra wiggle room. I think what we see is, I think owning a home is part of the American dream. I think that's just the case, and people want a piece of that. And home ownership has created a lot of wealth for a lot of people, but there are a lot of extra costs that folks don't consider, become phantom cost. So that number, people look at, what is my mortgage cost? And they look at that number and go, I'm good. But they're not factoring in the fact that you have to maintain this house, and that's going to cost 1% to 4% of the value of the house. That gets really, really expensive, right? You don't want the HVAC going out to blow up your financial plan because we didn't prepare for it. Insurance, HOA cost, all of those extra things that folks just forget about. And it's easy when buying a house, especially early on, first house, to get really emotionally attached to it. And I would challenge folks to think about alternatives. I think renting a house is a totally fine solution. Renting is still a good option. A lot of folks think it's throwing money away, but buying a house comes with lots of extra responsibilities and dollar signs beyond principal and interest.
It's not worth going into debt for, right?
Yeah.
Long term.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you find out you have to replace a roof, or something crazy.
Yeah. And if you are buying a house, you want to buy a house, I would say just plan for maintenance costs. The general rule of thumb is 1% to 4% of the value of your house. So if you own a $400,000 house, you're going to spend $4,000 a year in maintenance costs. So you need to be setting aside, $350 a month or so for that. But we know it's not that clean, right? You're not going to have $300 and some a month of maintenance costs. It's going to be very little one year and then replacing the roof the next. So make sure you're factoring all of those extra things in, and then just ask yourself if you really want the responsibility of being a homeowner.
Yeah.
How much should we be saving for a down payment? Perfect
world, you save 20%. That removes what's called PMI, which is property mortgage insurance, or private mortgage insurance, excuse me. And that sounds like it's insurance for you. It's actually it's insurance for the mortgage company, because the lower down payment you put, the higher chance that you'll default on the house, and the mortgage company wants to insure that risk. When interest rates are low, less is okay. It's less of a big deal, but you still want to try to avoid PMI. But interest rate environment now, we would be encouraging folks to try to save 20% if you can. And I know that's a big task, but patience is okay too.
Do you suggest that people roll their taxes into their mortgage or pay their taxes outright? Or does it even matter?
I think it's personal preference. I think for most folks, having the money come out of escrow is more convenient. If you don't have to think about it, it's basically just like a monthly bill that you're paying. I think it becomes a lot easier. If you really want to optimize and say, hey, this is money I could have in a high interest savings account, I could be making 4 or 5% interest on it, and I'm okay with the hassle of paying these taxes once or twice a year on my own, that's fine too, as long as you're responsible enough to do all of those things. But if you I don't want to worry about this, pay through escrow, and one less thing to worry about.
I think one of the common themes though, just on that point, is there's options. And I feel a lot of times you don't know all of your options. And that's probably where dun dun dun, a financial advisor comes into play.
Yeah.
Because you can get to the end goal multiple ways, if you agree.
Yeah, definitely. And in that example is we're trying to avoid surprises that might blow up a plan.
Right.
Like we're gonna have taxes on the house, like that's fine. Are we setting aside enough for that? Because we don't want the tax bill to come and go, oh, we don't have enough. Now we've got to come up with a few $1,000s from somewhere. Where's that money coming from? And that's when things start to unravel, these things that are surprises. We can't plan for everything, but we can, increase the surface area of those things and just be prepared as much as we can for it.
Yeah, I would say that Ricky is definitely no Dave Ramsey in the sense that like it's not the same answer over and over again. No debt. I mean, he really like listens to your interests, what you want to do with your life, and then kind of takes it from there. So I think that's why everyone needs a quality. I will throw in quality financial advisor, not just any Joe Smo, because it really can help just shape your life. Honestly, it's changed ours completely.
Does your financial advisor have to be in the state you live, or can you have a financial advisor everywhere? Like, can Ricky, can you be everybody's financial advisor in the United States? Can you be every mom betch's moneymaker?
Yeah, it depends on the financial advisor, but for me, I can work with anyone in the U.S.
I have a question. So, women live longer than men. Circling back, it's important, mom betches, to know your finances. Do you see like women switching their financial advisor once the husband passes away? Or do they typically stay with that person? Because I feel like before it was kind of like you said, like a male dominated, situation. But now women are owning more homes than men. They're becoming more financially independent. How is that shifting?
Yeah. I don't know the specifics, but the numbers are kind of staggering that in this situation, a husband passes away, wife inherits all the money, instantly fires the financial advisor, and then goes and gets another financial advisor. I worked at a firm where we got this data and they said, we need to start focusing on women. We can't just talk to the man in the situation all the time. So what they did is they turned CNBC off in the lobby and put on the Home and Garden channel, and they put some travel books out, and then they stopped wearing ties. Like that was their solution, rather than like, why don't we just treat women like people? And that can maybe help the situation. But I would, as a woman, I think you should be thinking about, this money, the wealth that we've accumulated, statistically is probably going to land on me at some point. And you're going to have the money towards the end of the plan. So being involved early on, making sure those decisions are made correctly so you don't have to unwind and change everything later. I like to think of our money that my wife and I have as ours, but I want to make sure she's in the loop because I would love to, we die at the same time holding hands in bed, but it's probably not going to go that way. And at some point she's going to get this money, and we want to make sure that's in line with what's important to her. So building the long-term plan is not the short-term thing. It's for the extent of both of our lives.
I think that's like a super important point, right? Like women need to regain our power. And I think we're starting to take place in society, we're here and we're here to stay. So, ask the questions, ladies, and, take your role in the finances because we matter.
Yeah. And I would say too, if there is a lot of white male financial advisors, but we're seeing growing number of diversity, specifically around CFP holders. And we're seeing more and more women CFP holders. So if you feel comfortable working with a woman, you'd rather work with women. Lots and lots of options out there. And in the virtual world that we live in, you don't have to be down the street from them. Find someone that you feel comfortable with, that's reasonable, respects you, includes you in the conversation. All that's very, very important.
Ricky, I just have one last question. It's really important to me, and I've waited this whole time to ask you. So I was telling my husband that we were doing a podcast with a financial advisor, and I asked him, why don't we have a financial advisor? And he said, because I am the financial advisor. And so I said, okay, but I want to work with a financial advisor because I want to know if I can afford a Louis Vuitton this summer. And he's like, you're going to have to ask him. how can I go to my husband to say, you said 30% for fun. I feel like women, we want to have fun, but we also want to save and we also want to take care of our children, but we need to still look good. We need to feel good. Okay. We're aging. Men, you guys look good as you age. Women, we don't. So for like a fun spin on this whole conversation, how do you have fun with your money?
Yeah.
Like, what do I need to do to be like, actually, James, I've hit my financial goals. He's a CPA, so I trust he's our financial advisor. And I have a whole USB with all of our passwords and everything just in case. But like, how do I have fun, Ricky? Like, how do I go to him and say like, actually, no, this is important to me. I want to go on this trip or I want to purchase this thing for myself. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And yeah, that's essentially what we do, right? Is, how do we enjoy life now? How do we enjoy life into retirement and then forever beyond that? Because it's unsustainable to not be having some fun now. If you wait until 65 to have fun and enjoy some of your money, it's ridiculous.
Ooh. Yeah, it's not fun. Some people live that way too. Some people are like, especially if it was like a generational thing. Like I feel like the generations before us, they saved to pass it down.
Work.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I don't know, like, look good.
Yeah, definitely. So I think I would back into the situation. I would say, well, what are our big goals? What are the goals that are more important than whatever we're trying to have fun for in the short term? Retirement, too big to ignore, right? For lots of folks, education goals for their kids, estate planning, those types of things are really important. And then we back into that with the cash flow we talked about those categories, but you really start with the savings and investing goals. How much do we need to save and invest to reach these goals? And then we start with that. We just make that a bill. So we've got that going automatically. We're heading in the right direction. We need to regularly revisit that because things change. And then after that, we have the fixed expenses that we have to pay, right? We've got to pay our mortgage or our rent or whatever, grocery bills. And then whatever's left over, hopefully it's in the 20 to 30% range, that goes to fun stuff. And that's kind of the month fun stuff. But also in your savings goals, I encourage all of my clients to open a separate bank account called Experiences. So that's, we call it the Opportunity Fund or the Experience Fund, and put X amount of dollars into it. So we can go on trips, we can go do fun stuff along the way. I define travel
Ricky, I love you.
much more vaguely than the average person. I definitely, traveling to Europe is travel to me, but going to a concert, going to a sporting event downtown, like that is travel to me. And it's really important to me. So we set aside money for that and make sure it's available. So whatever the goals are, I think travel should be a big one for folks. But whatever you're saving for, open a separate account for it, call it whatever that goal is, and put money into it on a regular basis.
I love that. Because we don't do that. We have our savings account. We have like a higher interest savings account. We do like the retirement. We do I think it's like 528 for Lakin's college. But I don't have a Celia account. I don't have a mom batch account. But now, like you said, I'm going to back into it. I'm going to say, James, put my allowance in.
James is about to hate this episode.
If not, we signing up for Ricky and he's going to get me my allowance account.
Yeah.
But I think that's great to know, like to think outside of the box like that, because it's a simple explanation. Just get a separate account. And I think that can help people compartmentalize things, because if you just have it all in one, life gets the best of you. You're living, everything kind of gets mushed together. But if you're like, nope, this is for this, this is for this, this is for this, especially with like technology and automation, like that can really help, I think, hold some accountability.
Yeah, it draws a much clearer picture. I think I've seen it on both ends where someone's like, I've got tons of money. And we go, okay, well, what is this money for? And then we start breaking it down. It's like, oh, I guess I don't have as much as I thought for what's important to me. And then people think they don't have any money, and we start breaking it down and they do have money. There are lots of high yield savings accounts to use. That's a really good place to go. We use Ally Bank. It's an online bank. And specifically, we use them because they have, they call it buckets. So I have one savings account, and then there's buckets in that savings account. So I've got an emergency fund bucket. We've got a gifts bucket. We've got a travel bucket. anything that we might spend money on, especially if it's in a non-monthly kind of expense, we put it in there and then we kind of earmark it specifically for what it's meant to be used for.
I love that.
So we are the Mom Bitch podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So a good percentage of us are moms, meaning we have children. What do we need to do to pass on financial literacy to our children? When should we start?
I think sooner is better. I don't have specific advice on how you do it, but I think for a lot of us, money was just really, really taboo growing up and it wasn't talked about. So talking about it is first and foremost, bringing them into the conversations, updating them on like how we're doing, what we're doing is really important. And I think also, you have to be a little selfish here too, to be unselfish. I think for most folks that I work with, they want to create generational wealth. We hear that all the time. They're motivated more to pass things on and help their children than they are to actually help themselves. But if you don't take care of your financial goals, if you don't set yourself up for success in retirement, who's that burden going to fall on? And then that's going to set them back even further. Even when you are trying to do the right things and maybe pay for college or help with college, that could end up being just a Band-Aid if you're sacrificing your long-term financial health that ultimately is going to fall on your children to take care of you in your later years, could put them back substantially. So I think just having conversations about money, making it a reasonable thing to talk about and not a scary thing to talk about is a great place to start. And then as they get older, saying like, here's, we just met with our financial advisor. Like, here's what we talked about. Here's, you don't necessarily have to give all the specifics if you don't want to. You don't have to give all the dollar amounts, but like, here's what we're working towards. Here's how we're doing it. Think about what you would want to know when, what do you wish you learned in high school? Or what do you wish you were taught as a kid about money? And it will go a long way. I talk to lots of folks about their experiences with money growing up, and it's always that it was taboo, that they didn't learn anything, that they wish they would have known these different things, and it was a source of stress and anxiety, and that makes the problem worse.
Yeah, I think it's good for kids too, because they can see like, hey, this isn't no fast and dirty game. Okay. We have to work hard and we have to save and we have to budget. I love that question, Cammie.
Yeah. When I was a kid, my mom works at a credit union. She's a teller. So I opened a bank account when I was relatively young. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Opening a bank account. I had my own money and there was like $5 or something. And I'm like, this is awesome. And then, even when we would go on vacation, we would roll quarters and see how much money we'd have. We'd count it out. Like I loved doing all that, and just being a part of the money conversation in the family was invaluable for me.
I mean, I feel like you have really given us a foundation to start, and I'd love to have you back to talk about estate planning. Because I feel like that's like a whole other conversation, whether it's helping your family to plan so that you're not just getting dropped everything with like no end in light in sight. And then also too, how you plan as a parent so that you set your kids up for success, heaven forbid something happened to you. So we definitely have to have you back for sure.
Yeah, we can field some questions.
Oh yeah, we're going to field some questions. You're coming back, Avi. But I feel like this was such a refreshing conversation because you don't really see women talk about money too much. Like, think about it. You just don't. And so we're going to, alongside of you, stop the taboo. Okay? We all need to be financial literate.
Yeah, I think for most folks, money is confusing. Sometimes that feels intentional. It's overwhelming, but it just like everything, it gets a little less scary the more we talk about it, the more real it is. And there's people out there to help.
Yeah, for sure. I think we all need to take a seat at the table.
Hells to the yeah. Well, Ricky, thank you for coming on the Mom Bitch podcast. We're going to have all of Ricky's information. So if you're looking for a new financial advisor that Cammie trusts, if Cammie trusts anyone, I trust that person because she's hard to please. But we'll put all of his information so that you can follow him, contact him. We appreciate your time so much. Thank you for helping to educate our audience.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
If you are loving the Mom Bitch podcast, we really want your help to like, subscribe, and rate wherever you listen to your podcast so that we can get more mom bitches to find us. But I have to give a shout out here for a second. Did you notice the quality of this podcast audio? That's because we have a podcast editor. Miraculously enhance your audio, get custom edits based on your preference, and let your podcast editor make the episode sound so much better with her audio content optimization. If you have a podcast or want one, talk to Taya, our podcast editor. She can help you strategize, edit, make social content, and keep you on track to make sure you have the very best show. AI can only do so much, so treat yourself and set up a free meeting with Taya to see how she can help you with your podcast. Go to tayachura.com/podcast. That's TEACHURA.com/podcast.
Women need to empower women, and our voice matters.
Welcome to the Mom Bitch Podcast.